So thank you very much, everyone, for giving us all that useful information. So is there any questions from the floor, first of all, before I launch into some of the questions that we've got up here?
I'm wondering how small local can be and still be monetized.
How local is local?
So we have Whitehall just over there, and let's call it 1,000 people working in Whitehall. I mean, can you monetize that in a really local way, or is there a certain, I don't know, what's the smallest you've ever gone and found some money in it, I guess is another way of asking the question.
Roland, would you like to start that one off?
I guess I'll give you a number. I think it's about 10,000 people. The reason I think it's about that is that typically that is the smallest size of community where you will see a meaningful number of businesses in that community. And that, for me, is the definition of when you can start to monetize that community. Because actually, if people are transacting in a commercial way, you know, whether that's buying their, you know, groceries each week, or in some instances going out in that community, actually that's the smallest kind of unit by which you can actually then start to make money, I think. So I would say about 10,000 people, because that's when business density starts to get interesting.
So James, is it a bit bigger for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my answer to the question would be more about relevance. I mean, not disagreeing with kind of the putting a number on it, but I think people associate themselves with different sized kind of geographical areas and different areas of population depending on where they are in the UK. I mean, something that we're obviously from the BBC and not having been kind of public funded and not to rely on revenue, we're as keen to look at areas such as the national parks of the UK, the Lake District, kind of areas of historical interest, as a means of kind of providing kind of something local as much as kind of towns and cities, which would be the obvious kind of place to kind of get kind of commercial kind of revenue back. But I think it's relevance. If an area, however big and small, is kind of has some relevance and therefore allows people to use it. I mean, in London, it could be a very small area, could still be quite relevant to people and therefore generate kind of some kind of revenue.
Does anyone else want to comment? Monetization point of view?
So if I just want to add, so when we talk about our PPC platform, our local PPC platform, we at this moment we target audiences also by starting at about 10,000 inhabitants. On the other side, agree to your what you just said. If it's relevant to this specific advertiser to get leads, and in performance area we talk about leads from this specific area, it doesn't really matter how granular you get. The more granular, the more relevant they are to him. But it also depends on the time frame. From the directory publisher side, we always have the 12 months. Sometimes you can monetize within that time frame to get those leads, sometimes not.
Okay, my question is probably more for Roland and Simon and Joachim. So, social media, should you be offering packages, and are you, to small businesses to do Twitter, to do Facebook, to manage that? And what kind of experience and uptake are you getting with small businesses? Because it seems like that's a great place to have your presence for that local business, because it is very event-driven and timely, and kind of answers some of those questions that Roland, showed in terms of high touch, but there's low volume in that space right now.
Shall I start?
Yeah, sure.
So the answer's kind of yes and no. Yeah, we have those packages available, but where you've got to start from with SMEs is assume that they are entirely, I mean this in the nicest possible way, but assume they are entirely digitally illiterate. And actually, if there's a little bit of digital literacy there, that's great news. But if you start the sales pitch with, hey, we can offer you a media outlet on Facebook and Twitter, they are going to look at you like you've kind of got three heads. And so, we really start from the point of view of, this is an initial step online. These are some of the things that it can help you achieve. And then kind of final slide in sales pack might be, actually you can also do some stuff via social media through our platform as well, and that's kind of interesting for them. But we really are, in the way in which you might have dealt with, say, a recruitment advertiser 10 years ago, is the way in which you should be thinking about small business advertisers now, because they are right at the start of this journey. And let's remember that, in many areas outside metropolitan centres, the majority of them don't have even their own website. And so it really is kind of baby steps to get there.
Yeah, to add to that, I think there's another question in there, which is the economics of monetization. That, frankly, it's hard to sell and service the small business and make money. So, the holy grail is obviously self-serve through Google, but at the end of the day, if you're selling a 50 sort of pound package to a small business, it's hard to make money on that. So I think it's early days for how we monetize all the social services coming, but certainly approach that we look at and test is almost distribution packages or complete packages for the small business. So we'll give you a website, for example, and then we'll also get distribution on Skype, and obviously with time we give you Facebook, so that we can get a reasonable share of the wallet and we can actually make money servicing the business on that basis.
I think first of all you have to sell it to your sales force, what you're selling to your client. And from the training sessions I took, it's hard to get them hooked on Twitter and Facebook. It take a while until they get the picture. However, to do a shortcut during that time, I think it's feasible to do partnerships with those social networks. An example would be, as Facebook has now also their possibility to place performance-based ads, that we include them into our network approach.
So if I could just take that one step further, and Roland, you mentioned like consultative sales approach is somewhere where we need to go. I think there's probably another argument to that as well, which is we don't have time, it's small units, the customer's not going to understand. Do our sales force understand? We've got to make them understand before we make it. So is there still a place for just push sell, or do we really need to go down the road of a consultative sales approach, especially on the sort of local level?
I think Simon made a really good point, that we are in a kind of chicken and egg situation with SME advertisers at the moment, where the average unit price is really low, but at the same time the cost of sale is often quite high, because they are in the infancy in terms of their kind of baby steps towards digital advertising. And actually, I don't think there is an easy answer there, and I don't think in the short term it's Google self-serve, because really there is a lot of confusion and a lot of distrust of Google, and that may change, but it won't be a short fix. My solution, and it's by no means a kind of set-in-stone solution, is twofold. First of all, I think over the next year or two, we will make gross margin negative sales. But actually, when you start to think about it from a customer lifetime value perspective, short-term gross margin negative actually might mean long-term value creation, because you lock those advertisers in if you're the first place online that gets hold of those advertisers. The second piece is that actually at the point that you do start to monetize those guys for the first time, their level of trust in you and willingness to participate in self-serve going down the road, I think, heightens. And so what I hope to see going forward is actually yield starts to migrate up, but at the same time cost to deliver goes down. But I do think, Simon's absolutely right, that in the short term there are real challenges in terms of the profitability of any individual sales unit.